Okay, so we're moving into a new section here, and everything we've done up into this point, solving equations, reading word problems, that's all just sort of support um, for things that you'll have to use throughout the entire course. Now we're moving into what's the meat of the Algebra 1, and that's going to be the discussion of what types of functions we have and how they behave, how to solve for x and other variables that come along with those types of functions. And in this course, if you looked at the syllabus, we have linear functions, we're going to have quadratic functions, exponential functions, square root functions, and a whole bunch of other things. So basically, Algebra 1 is going to be the study of different types of functions. So it's going to be useful for us to talk about different ways that we can treat all types of functions. All right, so we'll start today with what I call the vertical line test for functions. All right, and this will work for any function throughout the course. Basically, what we have here is this quoted part that says, if any vertical line passes through more than one point on a graph, then the graph is not a function. All right, so basically, if that asks you to know what a vertical line means. Remember, vertical is up and down, horizontal is side to side. So if we have a vertical line, so in this case, basically I'll use the edge of a sheet of paper to show you. You have a vertical line. If it passes through, and notice we're looking at the sort of reddish line here. We don't care about the graph. The graph is just where this relation is sitting. All right, so this little cross thing doesn't come into play here. It's just what we have drawn on this coordinate graph. Okay, so basically a vertical line. So if we slide the edge of our paper, notice the edge of our paper only touches that line in one place all the way across. All right, see how if we slide it from side to side, that edge of the paper only touches that little red line once all the way across. So this means that this is a function. We can say yes, that is a function. Okay, do the same thing for B. If I take my little paper and I slide it, and boom, right here immediately on this circle touches right here, and it touches right here. It's touching this line in more than one place, so that means it fails the vertical line test, and we say no, this is not a function. Okay, look at the third one. Take a second and see if you can figure out if it's yes or no. Okay, so sliding this thing across, you slide the edge of your paper, notice, boom, it hits this line right here in two places, and all it's got to do is hit it twice in the same place, one area of the graph, to make it not a function. So this means that this is also a no. Okay, so it's a fairly simple concept, but it's a concept that'll help you determine if somebody gives you a graph. Now you can determine that whether it's a function or not, just based on the vertical line test. All right, so let's look at a couple other examples here. What happens when they give you a bunch of coordinate points? First of all, the instructions here say to use the vertical line test to determine if each relation is a function. So in order to use the vertical line test, I have to have a graph. So what we need to do is graph these points. All right, and ideally you would be using graph paper, but I'm making do with what I've got. Notice the biggest number up here is 4, so we need 4 tick marks on each part of this graph. Try to make them spaced out as evenly as possible. So we're making a sketch of this graph. If we plot the points, remember the first number tells us the distance right or left, and the second one is up and down. So if we go over 4 and then down 2, there's our first point. If we go over 1 and up 2, over 1, up 2, there's our second point. Over 0, up 1, that's on the y-axis, that's that point right there. And then left 2, up 2, and there's your next point right here. So there's our points. Now if you wanted to use the vertical line test, you can slide it across there at each point. If you see, first there's a vertical line, it's only touching one point. There's a vertical line, it's only touching one point. There's a vertical line, it's only touching one point. And there's a vertical line, it's only touching one point. So in this case, we can say, yes, this is a function. Take a second and plot the second one and see if you can determine if it's a function or not. Okay, so hopefully you tried that. First of all, again, we have to graph. Notice the biggest number up here is 4 again, so we only need 4 tick marks. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's my little marks. Plot these points. Over 0, up 2 is right here. Over 1, down 1 is right there. Left 1, up 4 is right here. 0, down 3 is right here. And then 2, up 1 is right there. All right, so there's our function. Using the vertical line test, we can slide our paper. Boom, it only hits 1. But right here, boom, it's hitting 2 points. So we can immediately stop and say, this is not a function. So you can say no or not a function. But for the purposes of this exercise, I just wanted to show you how to graph points and use the vertical line test in that way. But from now on, if we can make a little statement here, if they give us a bunch of coordinate points, there's one value that we look at. If it has a repeating number, it's not going to be a function. And notice in this section, in this one here, it was not a function. Take a look at the x values. There's 0 there and a 0 there. We have a repeating x value in the coordinates 0 and 0. All right, so whenever you see that first number have a repeating number, then it's going to be not a function. However, if you look up here at the previous example, look at the y values, you can have repeating numbers. All right, and the reason for that is because the y values do not determine the up and down necessarily location for these dots. It's going to be these x values. If 2 points have the same x value, then they're going to be sitting on top of each other on the graph. Okay, so if you have any questions about that, bring them to class.